talks in this year, but this is the third year that the Heritage Association is trying to spread the word really about all the material that we've got in our archive in the Heritage Centre. We have a massive material on all sorts of different subjects to do with Mullion, of course. We specialise in Mullion. So this is the first of our talk this year, and it's on schools in Mullion, as you probably know, having come. It's not next month, it's the 21st. We're having an open afternoon, and it's going to be about linking up with the E-Day and what happened in Mullion in the war and evacuees and, that sort of thing. So it's going to be more open. It's not going to be a speaker as such, but it's going to be an open afternoon. And then in June, on the 25th, James is coming back again, James Wolford. He's done several lovely talks for us. And he's going to, is it some plane or other, Pam? Father's Hankel he's going to talk about. I think he made a start on this in the Old Cornwall, didn't he? So this is a sort of follow-up thing for it. Yeah, thank you. Okay, right. Well, thank you all for coming. Welcome. It's very good to see you all. What I've tried to do this afternoon is to find out about all the various schools that we have had in Mullion and try and find some information. Colin Roberts is very good and gives us a lot of stuff. Unfortunately, he and of course Rosemary as well, are unable to come this afternoon because they've got a big funeral at St Kevin. Mr Tripconey was killed on his tractor recently, sadly, so they're related, so they have to go. We start off in most villages with small schools to cater for children sporadically, really. Nothing organised as such, but quite a lot of widowed ladies or spinster ladies, usually ladies, opened their kitchen or their sitting room, and children used to come and learn a little bit about the 3 R's, I suppose, using an abacus, perhaps like this, which we were donated to the museum, or possibly slate like this, which some of you may have seen before. The idea is that you don't use paper.
I had one at school.
Well done, Anne. Yes, I knew somebody would. Yes, yes. And you could rub it out, couldn't you? You did what the lesson was, and then you rubbed it out so that you didn't have to have any paper or waste anything. So those sorts of things they used. And I have some information from Mrs. Melita George, who was a Matthews, related to Colin, and she's a bard, a Cornish bard. We've got a lot on that as well, that's another subject altogether. But this is an extract from her talk to the Wings Institute on the 10th of January 1975. And she says about dame schools, which is what these little schools were called. In my father's time, it was customary for children to attend a dame's school. The fee would be 2 shillings a week, and children were often obliged to work in the fields, earning the money for school, their parents having large families and little money to spare. So if you turned up with your 2 shillings, the lady would do some work with you to teach you a little bit. But it was not ideal, but it did help a lot of children, I think. But in 1870 we had an Education Act, and that required all children to be educated to attend a school. And it was compulsory for them to do that until they were 14, or if they got a job beforehand in the fields or the mines or wherever. So it was up until the age of 14. We've got quite a lot of information in this document, which is for the board school. Which I'll come to in a minute, but the idea was that a school was made in Mullion, and just across the road from us here, hello Richard, the Pure Bliss and Anderton's was the original school in the village, Mullion Board School. There's a photo here of the Bliss bit, but of course Anderton's is not in that photograph. But they acquired this piece of land from Viscount Clifton. You know, he owned an awful lot in Mullion village, didn't he? So 6 shillings a year they had to pay. rental for that piece of land. But they acquired the land and what is now was Anderton's, the space there, and used that. And it says here that they tried to appoint a board of governors in order to oversee everything and make sure everything was properly done. Mrs. George says there were 7 gentlemen elected onto the board, but here in this document from the paper, the newspaper, so it must be right, this is the Royal Cornwall Gazette, December the 28th, 1872. And this person who signs himself no hypocrite was really up in arms about the fact that the board of governors were all from the same religion, chapel, basically. And he was really, really cross about it. And he said, this is why they've been having trouble trying to appoint somebody. And he said, the fact is, when a schoolmaster comes to this parish and attends either the established church or the Wesleyan chapel and refuses to become a member of the United Free Church, his days are numbered and he has to hook it very quickly. Anyway, he was very, do read it because it's hilarious. I mean, he was so cross, this no hypocrite chap, whoever he was. I presume it was a man. But eventually these board members were elected. There was an election and they were elected. She says, Mrs. George says 7, but in my copy it says 5. And they were, in fact, 2 Wesleyans, 2 Methodist Free Church and 1 Independent. And nobody appointed the vicar, and everybody was up in arms. But like I said he was the brightest person in the parish. So they got the board school up and running with this election for these new gentlemen. And it says that all of them have worked most harmoniously together and carried out their duties most economically, more so than any other board in the district. And the first school conductor, which I presume was the head teacher, was a Mr. C.J. Bath. And as well as his school duties, he sang in concerts for the Curie Church Restoration Fund, and he played the harmonium upstairs in our church. Lots of staff were appointed, and there are various names and places. There's mostly ladies, which is unusual because as soon as you got married, you had to give up work. So, but obviously there was a Miss Tyack, a Miss Clement, who became Mrs. O. Basusto, and various names are mentioned here. And it says, if a pupil teacher was needed, when you applied, you gave your name and the salary required. There were 3 applicants on one occasion, Mary George and Janie George. Both wanted £8 a year. And Lily Matthews asked for £5 a year and got the job. However, she didn't last very long as she wasn't very strong and had to give up. So the board school carried on for quite some time, taking over the main, what is Anderton's, was Anderton's. There was a car showroom there. Mike remembers a big car in the side of the showroom and so on. And then round the corner, where you can just about see in now, there was a play area and an entrance. So it was a school for the village. But it was obvious that it was not really big enough to cater for the growing demand in the village, because there were lots of people moving in and children being born and so on. So they needed a new school. And they acquired, now this is where I'm playing it by ear, because Joss and Marshall have brought this documentation, which I haven't had a chance to read, all about the establishment of the school, which is now the co-op, right, which was the original school. And all that side of things pertains to that. So I'll have to read that another time. But apparently there was a bit of a furore about the builder, and Mr. Wynne took over the building, and he went bankrupt, apparently, and messed everybody about. But then I think it was Colin's relative, Mr. Matthews, took it on after that, and it was finished. And Mrs. George says, at this time the new school and the Coast Guard buildings, I suppose that's up at the Cove, I don't know, were being built. Unfortunately, the builder went bankrupt, which held things up for a while. But we moved in September 1900. We really thought it was lovely, so large, airy, and plenty of playroom. Children stayed until 14. About 15 children walked from Prydanig, several from the Cove, and 4 from Curie. Those were the days, weren't they? When you walked to school, walked home, and all the rest of it. Right, we've got lots of photos there and members of staff and so on, which some of you might, recognise the names of. But the school was established and went along and was very busy. And I have here, which Colin sent through to me, the HMI report. Before we had Ofsted, a lot of us remember HMIs. And this is the report, if you'll bear with me, in 1958 on the school, which is now the Co-op. Teaching in this unreorganised school, that means it's this age all the way through, not that there's anything wrong with it, is handicapped by lack of space. Of the 4 classes in which 110 pupils are organised, 2 share one room, which, though relatively large, serves also as a dining room and is the only means of internal access between one end of the school and the other. Many of you will remember that, I'm sure. The other 2 classrooms each have an area of less than 380 square feet. Storage space is inadequate. However, much good work is being done. The headmaster, who's been in charge for 4 years, has adapted himself well to work in a village school, of which he has had no previous experience. He is ably supported by his 3 colleagues, 1 assistant mistress who has taught here for more than 30 years. That, of course, is Miss Patton, which many of you will remember, and we have a photo somewhere around here of her retirement. There she is. Her retirement after 38 years teaching, which needs a medal, I think. I only managed 24, and it gave me a medal. Right. It says the children work well together and with their pupils who respond cheerfully and diligently and whose general bearing is a credit to all. So hands up everyone who was at the school in 1958, you were a credit. Credit to all. From an early stage, the children are encouraged to read as widely as possible, and small class libraries of appropriate books are being gathered together in each classroom. As they grow older, the pupils are expected to become more self-reliant through finding out information for themselves. At present, these efforts are in an experimental but promising stage, and the general outlook is broadening. Class lessons are supplemented by broadcast courses when appropriate. Developments in art and craft are hampered by lack of space, but the work in these subjects could be extended even in present circumstances. All the children change for physical education lessons which are lively and informal, and for which there appears to be adequate apparatus. Those lessons can only be taken in fine weather, as there is nowhere for them indoors. In winter, organised games are played on the village football field, and in summer on the village cricket ground. Senior pupils travel to Helston for instruction in handicraft and housecraft, and a garden adjoining the school is well tilled and gives experience of cultivating a fairly wide range of vegetables, fruit and flowers. Between 60 and 70 children remain at school for the midday meal, which is cooked on the premises and served in 2 sittings in the largest classroom. Social training is good, and there is almost no waste of food. The children staying for dinner wash before the meal, and each child in the school has his or her own hand towel. The kitchen suffers from excessive condensation and is in need of redecoration. A second draining board to the dual sink would improve facilities for washing up. I'm so sad that Rosemary's not here. It was before her time, of course, but Yes, Joss, do chip in.
The sorting office out the back. But you know how small that was?
Yeah.
That was the school kitchen, which goes on
She cut, yeah,
150 children.
yeah.
I know.
Can imagine it, can you? No,
It's so small and pokey.
tiny. Yeah. But she did it for ages, didn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, so that's the HMI report in 1958, and we've got photos of various teachers, Mr. Dancer, Mr. Sweet, Mr. Edgar Perry, those of you that remember Ivan, Mr. Perry was related to him, and he's in several of the photos, Mr. Perry, and the team photos, he's on the end there. There was a Mr. Hall, Mr. Kirk, and ladies, Miss Coward, who was later Mrs. Gilbert, Miss Patton, of course, that I've mentioned, there was an advertisement for an assistant mistress in July 1903 for £45 per annum salary. And I expect many of you remember Mr. Phillips's time as head later, and we've got a retirement book of his here. This brown book is full of retirement pictures, and all the classes are all named. So if you were there then, you'll be in here. So do have a look later on. And another thing that has just appeared from Jocelyn Marshall is this wonderful brick, which says Mullion School 1901, Mullion Post Office 1999, Mullion Co-op 2018. So apparently they've kindly donated that to the Heritage Centre. So we shall have that forever and everybody will know. So thank you, Jocelyn Marshall. From one of the internal walls.
Because as you know, the outside walls are all serpentine.
Yes.
This is white.
Yeah. Lovely. Yes, of course, Joss's family moved from next door down to the co-op, which was the post office then. More room, wasn't it, for you? Okay. So we're still on the school, Mullion School here. And we've moved on to the late 40s, early 50s. And in 1948, a new headmaster was appointed, Mr. Ken Rowse. Michael is here, very kindly. He'll put me right if I get it wrong. He was a major in the Gurkhas in India during the war, and he came back and he had to do another year at St. Luke's because they were taken out, for the war. He had to come back to St. Luke's for a year, and he always said that, St. Luke's is a Methodist college, right, and they had to be in at 10 o'clock and all this, no drinking. And he said we changed all that when we came back from the war, and it was much more open and easier from them all. Anyway, he moved down here after he completed that. He did teach for one term as a teacher at Falmouth School, and then he was appointed, because of course so many men were lost in the war. They were desperate for people to take on the jobs, and in those days it was not a lady's job very much. Mostly men. So he moved into the village, and they moved to Dinsdale in Piggy Lane. I don't know if you know that there's one house there now. Dinsdale was knocked down when Mike and I first came here. We saw it all being taken down, and Tresprisian, is it called? Yeah. And it was the only one, we've got a photo of it, stuck there in Piggy Lane, and nothing at all around it. Yeah. But anyway, we can look across from our place now and see it. Okay, he came with his wife and a little boy. And every head has to have a logbook, and no one else is allowed to see it except the head. They put in there anything that happens that's people visit, and in the beginning it was how many times they came to Joe Blogs and all this sort of thing. But I have managed to acquire a copy of it. And this is his first entry on the 9th of September 1948. Beginning of autumn term and my first day at this school as headmaster. 2 new admissions, Roger Luke, and Rosemary Richards. 6 boys and 6 girls were away at Helston at woodwork and domestic centres, which was mentioned before, wasn't it? So that was his first entry. There is another one of these here, but this is an aerial view of the school at that time, and you can see the walls and in the document about the building, the amount of money for the building, the walls around it, and all the rest of it is included. And behind it, you can just about see the allotments or garden, which is where the present school is. The present school was built on that, so that's quite interesting to look at how it was from the air. Managing a growing school with such a wide age range could not have been easy. From about 3, I think the little ones came, to 14. But sport was very popular, and Mullion did very well in all the football tournaments. There's lots of football pictures there. And Chris Gilbert, who unfortunately can't be here either today, remembers coming back from a successful football win, all in a large coach, and they stopped for fish and chips for everyone. And of course, pupils worked off their energy in the allotments behind the school. Rosemary remembers she wasn't allowed to go out and work in the garden, which of course was all she wanted to do, until she'd done her sums properly. She'll tell you. Yeah. So that school was running and busy and filling up, and lots going on in that part of the village. But in 1949, which is round about the time that we're thinking of, there was a young couple called Mr. and Mrs. Killick who came to Mullion on their honeymoon, and they fell in love with it. And they decided to buy a property, and when the war was over, they were in London, when the war was over and everything was sorted, they were going to move down to Cornwall and give up all their jobs and everything. And that's what they did. And they bought Henscalf House, which is up at the Cove. If you go up towards Mullion Cove Hotel, there's a row of houses on the side, and it's the second one. And there's photos here of it. It's very similar actually to how it was. So it's a big photo of it. Yeah. So they bought that, Henscalf House. Then they had to try and make some money, because of course they'd given up their jobs. They didn't have any means of making any money until they thought about how they were going to do it. So Mr. Killick tried all sorts of things. He tried to grow, what's those little flowers called? No, coloured. Anyway. And send them up to London. You pack them all up, and certainly grew those. She did bed and breakfast, of course. I mean, that was the way to do it, wasn't it? So she did a lot of bed and breakfast. She even made pasties for the old inn to sell, so she did all that for a long time. But they did decide that they would open a school. There was a little school on the corner of Park Egloss, almost opposite the church house, which Miss Mitchell owned. I don't know if anybody knows any more about that. I couldn't find very much about that. Right, so you can tell us a bit more about that. Yeah. I don't know when she started doing it.
Mum went to school in Helston to start with Miss Constantine, and it was above a draper's.
Oh.
She used to get popped on the coach in the morning and then picked up off of it later. And then after she'd done like reception infants, then
she moved to Miss. Well, apparently Miss Mitchell in 1949 decided she wanted to retire and get her house back to herself as a residence for herself. And there's a lot about this, about the school that they formed in Penny's book. She's written a book, and we have some copies here for sale if you'd like to. She tells the story of what they did when they first came. But this is fascinating because there's an awful lot about Mullion at the time. Not just the school, but all the things, all the walks they did and all the things they did. And it's so interesting because, of course, it's gone now, most of it. But that is her book. And she's got... we photocopied these pages because she does say quite a bit about the school. Henscalf School officially opened for the beginning of September 1949. My father's class was fairly sparse at first, with about 6 or 7 pupils, whose ages varied from 6 to 8 years old. For my mother, in the little classroom at the other end of the house, there were a few more, including Wendy, that's her older sister, and the majority of the children being between 3 and 4 years old. Imagine that. It was an exciting day, the parents arriving with their children in time for the 10 a.m. start. My parents greeted them all and showed the children where to hang their outdoor clothes and bags and put on their indoor shoes. All the children had on their new uniforms, and for the first day, the children were accompanied to their classrooms by their parents. School began at 10 o'clock with lunch for the school children at 12:30. The little ones, aged 3 to 5 years, were either collected by their parents or taken up to the hotel car park to wait for the bus at 2 o'clock. The bus conductor would then take charge of the children, and parents would be waiting for their small offspring at various points on the way back to the village. How precarious that seems now, but there were no casualties. The older children were collected an hour later. So that was how they started, and as I say, there's a lot of information in there about how they ran the school and how it developed. Nowhere have I been able to find how much they charged, but there must have been a fee, obviously. The school ran successfully until 1963, when they decided to sell up and move away back to, I think, Suffolk. They moved to in the end. 1953 we move on to now, was a special year with the coronation of Queen Elizabeth II. Of course, Mullion celebrated. You know, Mullion was really good at carnivals and galas, and we have a massive information in there about people on floats and all sorts. We've got a small one of Colin, actually, if anybody's interested, about this big. Yeah. And Kit, of course, who's just lost her husband. There were a lot of preparations made in the village, obviously, for the coronation. And this is my father-in-law's logbook from that year to show us what was happening. He started early, 13th of February, 1953. Have today arranged for a census of all the children in Mullion Parish of ages 0 to 16 years in connection with presentation of coronation souvenirs. The census will be carried out by senior scholars working in pairs, each being allotted a definite area of the parish. So he got sorted early on to find out how many children there were that required their particular gift. What was it you had, Mike? A mug and a...
Mugs and a box full of Smarties.
How exciting. Then we move on to the actual month, the June, for the coronation. 1st of June, school closed on the 1st, 2nd and 3rd of June for the coronation holiday. 18th of June, at 3 p.m. today, all children of this school attended a special showing of the film Elizabeth is Queen at the Women's Institute. Children paid 6pence each. Balance of the cost, 3.5 guineas, being borne by the school general fund. 15th of July, 10:30 to 11:45, whole school attended a special showing at the Women's Institute of the coronation film in Technicolor, A Queen is Crowned. Cost of this show was £4.14 and 6pence. The children paid 6pence each, total of £2, 2 shillings. The remainder, £2.12 and 6, was paid from school general fund. So they had a really good time at the coronation, and obviously saw these films at the Women's Institute and had their presentations and so on. And Henskath were very busy too for this special occasion. Sue is here. Her mum and dad were at the old inn in those days and were very friendly with the Killicks. And Sue's mum had this brilliant idea of a float for the coronation with the 6 queens of England, little girls all dressed up in the various different robes. And that's what they did. And here at the end here we've got a lovely photo of it here, the 6 queens. There's Queen Elizabeth I, Mary I, Mary II, Queen Anne, Queen Victoria, and of course, Queen Elizabeth II. And this is the actual frock that Sue wore. She's going to try and get into it in a minute.
Douglas George was the painting, and then my mum sewed all the sequins.
Yeah.
Wow.
Beautiful, isn't it? So it was all the different things from the different countries, from England, Scotland. Yeah. So Douglas, you all remember Douglas, Melita's son. And he did all that beautiful painting, and then Sue's mum did all the embroidery and the sequins and stuff. So that's really lovely that we've still got that as a preserve. And there they all are. There they all are on the plinth, and some more photos there. On the back, it tells you what they did and so on. So if you've got time, have a little read. It's very interesting. And I think it must have been a wonderful, wonderful occasion for everybody.
You won all over Cornwall with that float.
Yes, you did, didn't you? Yeah, it didn't stick to Mullion.
No.
No. Must have looked lovely. Must have looked lovely. Yeah, because Penny was only about 5 or 6, wasn't she?
Younger than me.
Yeah. So
We Victoria.
Yeah. Right, so do have a look at those. In 1954, Mr. Rowse applied for the headship of a new larger school in Plymouth St Maurice in Devon, and his final day was recorded thus. School closed at 4 p.m. today, 27th of July, after the end of term service and presentation on behalf of parents, managers and scholars to myself on leaving Mullion. Thus ends a very happy period of 6 years for me at this school. And I have brought what they presented him with, the managers, governors we call them nowadays. If I could lift this without it all falling to bits. It was well used, we still use it for guests. But interestingly, in here we've got the guarantee, still got the guarantee inside, and it says the retailer's name and address was J.S. Oates, Menade Street, Helston, Cornwall, 26th of July, 1954. So we're lucky to have that and keep it. And there's a little plaque on the top. It says presented to Mr. H.K. Rowse by the staff, the scholars and managers of Mullion County Primary School, July 1954. So we still got. Yeah. Yes, so I think he enjoyed it, and then he went up to Plymouth St Maurice, and he was head there for 25 years, and that was a new school. I was already in Plymouth St Maurice, and it was a old-fashioned school with a curtain across the middle, so we were moved up to this lovely new school. Right, nearly there, folks. No. Oh, somebody's twizzling. Oh, hold on, Josh. So the primary school, Mullion School, was really big. Henscouth School had closed and they'd gone. And there was obviously a need for a school for older children. And so it was decided to build a comprehensive school, well, secondary school it was in those days, comprehensive school on land just at the back of us, really, in a way, wasn't it? And about the same time, the new primary school was thought of, which was behind the ordinary primary school. So there was a lot of building going on too. And I often think about those children across the road when they were there in the 1870s, because this chapel was being built. In 1878, it opened. So, there must have been lots of things to look at, lots of activity and building work. Why did Mr. Wynne go bankrupt, we want to know. Anyway, so, so the secondary school, there was proposals for that to be built. And it was opened in September the 5th, 1978, with Mr. Ian Hamilton as the head. And there's lots of information, again, for you to look at. Which I won't read out to you, but it's all here. And he did actually, here it is, have a look through that. He's at, Mr. Hamilton, he's still with us, he goes around the trolley. This is 1978, 5th of September, every single event, right through to July 20th, at the end of the first year. How the school was developing and so on. So that's very interesting. And there's pictures, photographs, and there's something, in here that shows you all they had their 21st birthday, so do have a look at that if you were, round about at that time. So there's quite a lot of stuff to look at about the secondary school. And then it became a comprehensive school. Mr. Hamilton retired after 25 years, and that's in there as well. And that's fascinating because it's the record of what they call the smallest secondary school in the county, which is rather nice. And the primary school was on its way. I've got one photo of that, which is here somewhere. Can't find it now. Which you all know, it's under there, I think. You all know what it looks like. It looks there. There it is. That's when it was new. So, of course, it's developed now. There's the nursery there, the flying gulls, they call themselves. So it's lovely. And it's very busy. Now, the original school then was left. And I think you'll put me right if I'm wrong, Joss, but the original school was purchased by Mr. Ken Jones of the Seal Sanctuary. Yeah. He made it into a museum, and Mike and I visited it, didn't we, when we first came here? And it was full of model railway tracks running around.
No, that was the next chap.
Oh, was it? Ah.
That was a German.
Oh, the German, sorry. Good job you're here.
That's the original one, just had old farm machinery.
Farm machinery, right.
I think outside.
We must have visited the other one with the railways.
Yeah, that was
Schmidt's. Yeah. Anyway, that was, but he wanted to raise money to start a seal sanctuary because he found this sick seal somewhere and was inspired to start a sanctuary. So he passed it on to somebody else. And then the Grimmer family came along and purchased it.
But it was quite derelict by then, because the Schmidts had been gone a long time.
Yeah.
So,
it was in a bit of a state.
It was a terrible state, yeah. The floor, the lovely parquet floor, which Mr. Phillips, I think, had overseen being laid, had come up in a great big heap, sort of a lump like that with the damp. It had raised up into a big hillock.
So it was damp underneath.
Damp, yeah, the whole thing was damp, and that's what happens to parquet floors apparently.
Oh.
You get really damp.
Right. So you had a lot of work to do then.
It was all local chaps. I remember, Frank Butler, he still lives here. John Chambers, plumber, and
yeah.
I can't think now, all sorts of people.
So about how long, Joss, did it take then for that to be made?
I think it was about a year, best part of a year probably.
Before you could actually transfer.
Yeah. And everything inside, this is the only thing, was painted black, all the walls, bathrooms, because Mr. Schmidt had done this amazing thing. It was called Bay West City. I don't know if anyone went to see it. It was a model city laid out with lighting and...
that's what I remember. That's what we must...
trains going around and trusses.
And dark. It was all dark as well.
Everything was dark and everything was painted black so that it would look more spectacular.
Oh, wow. That's what I was...
A lot of magnolia paint was...
So you've got the magnolia out. Yeah. Oh, great. Yes, so it changed from being a school eventually to a post office, and now, of course, it is the co-op and post office together. There are a couple of things here that you might be interested in. I know it's Curie, but this is a little booklet that David Lugg gave me, and it's got children's writing in, and various names that you remember. Priscilla Oates wrote a nice piece on snow when she was 7 years old. So I put that there for you to have a look at. And also, I don't know if you've come across this book at all. If you haven't, grab it and read it. It's fantastic. Petrok Trelawney, who's on Radio 3, and he also does lots of other things as well, but he's a journalist. So he decided, he was brought up in St Martin, and he's decided to write a journey through Western lands, he calls it. So he talks about St Martin when he was there, and he works his way up through the county, right up to the boundary, and he talks about various things. But the bit that I'm picking out for the school today, he talks about the school that they had at St Martin, and he says the handsome Victorian schoolhouse behind is now a dwelling with 2 cars parked outside. The shiny silver pipe of a solid fuel burner pierces through the roof. In my time as a pupil here in the late 1970s and early 80s, a black enamel coke-burning stove belched loudly and scattered its glowing embers as Mr. Teague, the headmaster, added more fuel. If you've been in a country school, you'll all remember those things. There were just 2 teachers. Mrs. Pascoe supervised those aged between 5 and 8, and Mr. Teague taught the remaining 3 years. The whole school, around 30 pupils in my time, would gather in the main room for assembly and then regroup at noon for lunch. This is the bit. Food for primary schools across the area was cooked centrally in Mullion and then dispatched in insulated metal boxes. If you ever went to a village school, you'll remember that. Rosemary denies all this vehemently. She says she wasn't involved with this. I suppose it was before her time. The main course would be lukewarm by the time we got to eat it. Pies, pasta baked, sausage and mash with stringy green vegetables or dry salad. Tepid steamed puddings and fruit pies followed, often accompanied by custard, lightly coloured pink or green, in an effort to make it more exciting. So when I told her about this, she said it wasn't nothing to do with her. She never ever sent any food to Martin. So we have to take her word for it. This is a fantastic book. If you find it, read it. It is good, very good. So there you are. That's more or less all I've got to say about this, because I think you'll probably prefer to come and have a poke around and look at different things. And also the Heritage Room is open, so please go in there. We've got new displays up. We've got lots about the shops and businesses in the village in the past, and you're welcome to go and have a little look around there. And do try and come when we're open. We'd like to be open more, but we need stewards. We've got to have 2 stewards to actually sit with us. Because 2 is going to be 2 now, 1 is not enough. So if you feel you've got an hour or 2 of an afternoon, please volunteer. We'd be very grateful. Thank you all for listening very much. We've got tea and cake, so do have a little look around and enjoy the afternoon. Thank you so much.